Good evening. Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and we are TruthCat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. It's, again, Thursday night. It's now February 20th, 2025, 6:01 p.m. All right, everyone. Welcome to the show. I don't have a title for you tonight, but we're going to stick with what's going on, some very, very dramatic things going on in the world that we're going to talk about, the geopolitical situation. And it's kind of interesting because I actually had to go back and look it up. But the biggest thing that has happened in the last few days, of course, I mean, the thing that's really sent the shockwaves around Europe and sort of has put everybody on notice was the speech J.D. Vance, Vice President of the USA, gave at the Munich Security Conference here in Munich, Germany. And it was on the 14th, Valentine's Day. What a lovely Valentine he gave to those Europeans in attendance at that meeting. But here's the thing. Like I said, my last show was on the 13th. I had to go actually look at the calendar. And I know that the flavor or the momentum of the things we're going to talk about and the developments that have come to be we're brewing. We're in the process. We're gaining momentum at the point of the last show. But with the speech that Vance gave, it was like an explosion, kind of. And needless to say, I pretty much agree with everything he said. And I'm not going to get into the rah-rah or anything the U.S. government does at this point. I've got a lot of good, positive things I want to say about our future. These things that are happening right now suggest a time for renewed optimism and a lot more hope that we're not going to have to deal with a nuclear war. This is wonderful, good news. But at the same time, obviously, there is very concerning developments and suspicious activities that you could say are related to the cozy relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And even though his government agency now is responsible for recovering or identifying billions and billions of dollars of government abuse and waste, at the same time, it remains to be seen what happens to that money and if this is just the confidence-building activities that always happen before a pump and dump or a great disillusionment or disenchantment, as they say, which I've always said is something that we have to look forward to. However, we have to talk about the good stuff. Now, obviously, the thing that's going on in Ukraine is a big deal, and the promises or the meeting that took place between the Americans, I think J.D. Vance was involved in this too, as well as, let's see, what was his name? Witkoff. Like I didn't have his name right last time. I think it was Steve Witkoff and another guy. Oh, yeah, Mark Rubio. This was the contingent that went to pave the way for the original negotiations in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, between the USA and the Russians. I almost wanted to say Soviet Union, but anyway, wonderful, wonderful things and possibilities are coming out of that. However, all of this is a complete bombshell to the Europeans and the people that are interested in taking over, having conquest of Russia and taking their assets and everything else. I mean, this has been a European wet dream for quite some time, and we'll discuss that. But first, I want to talk about the speech by J.D. Vance. Now, I don't have, if you had the opportunity to actually listen to the entire speech and not the excerpts from the mainstream media, I recommend you do listen to it because it was relatively short. It was certainly well said. I mean, I don't have a lot of respect for this person, Vance. I don't know him that much, but I'll say that everything he said was definitely right on. Now, to give you an example of just how biased the entire media system is, when I looked up his speech, and I'm going to read to you from this because it's it's from a lot of it comes his perspective comes from CNN, but this is Wikipedia. Wikipedia has obviously this is a new thing because the speech was only 5-6 days ago. But let's just look through. I want to start out with this because I want to show you how they are describing the speech. It's not going to cover the speech; it'll cover some of the points, but the language that they use to describe it, and obviously I'll give my rebuttal. Let's see. How do they start this thing? Well, they start with a background. It was delivered at the 61st Munich Security Conference, an annual conference on international security policy held in Munich, Germany. Well, that's crazy, huh? Now, Vance had been there previously as a senator, but this time his address was, they say, let me see, under the second. Okay, let's just say this. Forget the background. Let's just go to the key points. Probably the biggest takeaway, before I even talk about what Vance said, was what the guy that put together the conference said at the very closing remarks of the conference. And this guy was in tears as he said this, because this was how badly he shook up the Europeans. But he said, it appears that our so-called common values are not so common anymore. Now, of course, for the last several years, we've heard the people like von der Leyen talking about the European Union and their common values and all this. And a lot of these common values, of course, they talk about are, well, let's see, abortion, transgender, promotion of homosexuality, promotion of so-called liberal values. And one of the most important, of course, was the immigration policies to bring in people from outside the various countries, let's just say. So these are all very, very important things. And of course, these countries that have been part of the European Union, we talked about this briefly in the last show, this pussification, if you will, is definitely the result of the policies of the victors in World War II, the so-called anti-Nazis, but the ones that set up Israel. But anyway, key points. So he started his speech out, he said that he was focusing on the assertion that internal threats were the greatest dangers to European democracy, not the external challenges from Russia or China. Now, obviously, what he was basically saying was that their policies and their Nazi attitudes were a bigger problem for democracy and freedom than this so-called threat from these other countries like Russia or China. Now, of course, the bias, they say. He said mass immigration was Europe's most significant problem. Now, bear in mind, they're skipping ahead here, and they're taking that out of context because that doesn't even come up that early in this conversation. But he's talking about but of course, they're going to make a big deal out of that because, especially in Germany, this is a very polarizing issue, the mass immigration that's going on, so much so that, we'll talk about it when Vance had a meeting with the Alternative Party in Germany, which is actually called Alternatives for Germany, the AFD. And these guys are being branded as Nazis and part of the attack that he made on this so-called weak-ass democracy that they have over there. So let's see. In his speech, Vance said that European democratic institutions and rights to freedom speech were being undermined, obviously. Specifically accused European politicians of canceling elections, referring to the annulment of the first round of the 2024 Romanian presidential election. Now, they're going to use language to, dilute this, but let's continue. Following reports of Russian internet and TikTok campaigns to promote nationalist independent candidate KELLEY Georgescu, who had come first. Okay, now let me just stop right there. Repeat this. Reports of Russian internet and TikTok. Okay, it was primarily a TikTok campaign. They didn't even say anything about Russia. They said it was Chinese-owned, this was the quote, Chinese-owned TikTok had interfered in the elections, and that's why they had to do this. Now, again, when they say Georgescu, who had come first, he didn't just come first. He came in with a substantial majority. Substantial. Not just first. He crushed the opponent that was of the party in control, of the people, the let's just say the Eurocrats. He crushed the Eurocrats. Now, what else would they say before I comment again about this TikTok thing? A nationalist candidate, that's code for Nazi. Now, we'll explain why they think he is this way, but obviously he has the, as I've said before, he had the horrible, horrible idea that Romania should take care of Romanians before they worried about other European countries and taking care of European policies and so-called European values. They should focus on their own domestic needs and values first. That was just such a terrible, terrible, horrible nationalist independent idea that you not part of this European values. Let's see what else you say. Vance compared the annulment to Soviet-era practices, saying that if your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising from a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with. This quotation is a little bit off. He didn't really say a few $1,000s of that. I think he said TikTok ads or something of this nature. So he said their democracy is weak. The so-called democracy is weak. If they have to overturn elections because they can't withstand some TikTok, there's something wrong. He compared the annulment to, let's see what he say. I'm sorry. He said that the Romanian courts had decided to annul the elections under pressure from flimsy suspicions of an intelligence agency and enormous pressure from its continental neighbors in reference to the European Union. He specifically condemned cavalier statements made by former European Commissioner Thierry Breton, saying that he sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election while on television. Again, they're watering everything down. Let's see, freedom of speech. Vance accused European leaders of using ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation, which is true, of course, in order to hide old entrenched interests. Not exactly sure what that is, and against alternative viewpoints that might express a different opinion, or, God forbid, vote a different way, or even worse, win an election. The Vice President also heavily denounced the UK government for its renegade free speech laws, citing the example of Adam Smith Connor, who was jailed for, quote, breaching a, quote, safe access zone around an abortion clinic. Now, let me just give you a little background to that one particular story, because, of course, it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, these things can be abused. If you are of the opinion that abortion clinics should have a zone where there's no protesters, well, that's your view. But here's this guy who is apparently standing within this so-called perimeter nearby an abortion clinic, and he was praying. And I don't know what that means when you're praying. I assume that means he had his hands together in a praying posture, and his eyes were closed, perhaps, and he looked like he was praying. And the police approached him, and they asked him, and this, of course, is just insane when you think about the type of retardation it would take to ask somebody a question like this. They said, "What are you praying about?" And the man said, "Well, I'm praying because years ago, my girlfriend and I had an abortion, and I still feel really guilty about it, so I'm here praying today, asking for forgiveness." And they arrested him. Now, first of all, he didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to hold his hands up and make a display of his praying. You can pray anywhere. You don't have to do this, whatever. And I'm not trying to suggest that these cops are right, but obviously, by telling them that he was somehow protesting or doing something anti-abortion related in his prayers. And so who the hell tells idiot cops walking up to you what you're praying about? You know, it's like rule number one when dealing with the CIA. Never let them know what you're thinking. But obviously he wanted to challenge. But he did. He got arrested, and he pointed out how foolish their rules are, not necessarily for their intolerance of any dissent within this so-called safe zone, but their attitudes towards prayer in general, which of course we know ultimately is an attack on Christianity. But let's see, what else do you say? He also denounced Sweden's conviction of a Christian activist for burning a Quran as prosecution of religious expression. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't think he should have been burning the Quran. But at the same time, these people are asking to be arrested. But yes, each one of these things is a test to show how stupid these things are. He talks about crackdowns on anti-feminist comments in Germany, with warning letters sent by the Scottish government to people in Scotland whose homes were in safe access zones of allegedly outlawed private prayer. I don't know. That's okay. They're getting into some weird crap because obviously a lot of this is twisted. If you listen to the speech, it's very common language the guy uses, and it makes a lot of sense. But of course, this is the establishment that they're trying to defend. Let me see if I can switch and get past it. He says, on American domestic politics, he criticized Joe Biden for working with social media corporations to censor so-called quote-unquote misinformation, including, and this is funny language here, his claim that COVID-19 possibly leaked from a lab in Wuhan. So in other words, they're saying that Vance is responsible for this crazy idea that lab in Wuhan where they created all this stuff had some responsibility in it being released. Crazy idea. He's reckless. And he assured that the Trump administration would be doing precisely the opposite of what the Biden administration was doing as far as silencing dissenting voices. Really, let's hear him say occupy the Getty. Now, he also said, this is funny, this was funny at the time, he said that if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk, in reference to accusations of election interference against Musk for his promotion of Alternative for Germany, the AfD party. Now, here's the thing about the AfD. Like a lot of leaders over there that are against this Euro socialist Zionist thing that they're trying to put on everyone, the Alternative for Germany party is probably, they're actually doing really well in the polls. And again, the people in power are trying everything they can to label this group some sort of a radical Nazi organization and therefore unable to participate in the elections. And yet, much like Marie Le Pen or Georgescu, or take your list of any number of people, or Bonn in Hungary, they are the voice of reason, and they are the voice of what's best for their country, and yet they are being branded with the most ridiculous labels, which of course more aptly apply to the people that are actually making the accusations. Obviously, the European Union, NATO in general, is a Nazi organization. It always has been. What else do we say? Now, before I get to the reactions, let me see if there's anything I'm missing. Well, obviously, telling the Europeans that they had to spend 5% of their GNP towards defense is a big, monstrous big deal over in these countries in Europe, because first of all, they just don't have it. They couldn't do it. And second of all, even if they did do it, it really wouldn't make that much of a difference because of the waste. Here's the thing in the Soviet Union, Russia, when they produce weapons and systems for the state, for the country, they're Spartan. And when I say Spartan, much like the Spartans, they're not dressed up and full of crap and made to make someone money. No, I'm sure there's some corruption over there. Obviously, there certainly was in the 90s, but for the most part, Russian weapons are designed to be functional without any kind of frivolous waste or over-engineering, which is the key, because obviously like the F-35 with its 41-mile-long assembly line or some ridiculous damn thing like that. It takes like 18 months to build one damn F-35 in Lockheed factory in Texas. Can you imagine a Reznik missile hitting that Lockheed factory in Texas? You think they'd be making any F-35s for a while after that? And here's the thing. Those parts for those F-35s, they come from all over the place, including countries like Poland and England and South Korea, places that are not that, stable. Anyway, so let's go to the reactions. Okay, again, we have more important stuff to talk about, but I got to get through this here first because it's funny. All right, CNN noted, here they are, Wiki's going to CNN, noted that the conference attendees who listened to Vance's speech sat, quote, stony-faced, interrupting his speech with sparse and modest applause. Yes, I mean, at the very beginning of the speech, they applauded him before he even started speaking, and he said, I hope this isn't the last time I hear applause today, because he knew what he was about to do. He was going to cut them all new buttholes, and that's exactly what he did. Now let's go get to this. Some of these reactions. Let's see. An unnamed European representative said that Vance's speech was the only topic after the other officials were discussing during the summit. Of course, several United States and European diplomats and officials expressed dismay at the speech as the speech occurred, with one claiming that it led to a room full of people with their mouth open. Yeah, no shit. That's called their jaws were on the floor. They're like, ugh. A former House Democratic member accused Vance of victim-blaming Europe for its response to election interference by Russia and claiming that Vance has also been interfering with European elections. He's talking about Romania. He says, you're blaming Romania, the victim, for betting, and they had to leave Brittany alone. Anyway. Let's see. John Cornyn, Republican senator for Texas, expressed hope that the speech caused Europeans to realize that their free ride on the coattails of America had ended. An unnamed former senior United States diplomat described the speech as a wake-up call to Europe, that it had not been dealing with the same United States that it had used to for decades. Let's see. All right, here's the Europeans. All right, commenting on J.D. Vance's speech, German Minister of Defense Boris Pistorius, another retard, said that Vance's comparison of parts to Europe to authoritarian regimes was not acceptable. Come on! That's just tough shit, dude. The head of Europe. I mean, this is coming from countries that will throw you in jail for a meme, for a post on Twitter. Okay? Seriously. If that's not authoritarian. The head of the European Union diplomacy, I talked about her last week, Kaja Kallas, stunning and brave, Lithuanian bitch, said that she had the feeling that the United States was trying to pick a fight with us. Come on, you're a nothing. You're a damn mosquito. I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. I'm trying to tell you to wake the F up. Okay, Foreign Minister of Sweden, Maria, this should tell you something. Maria Malmer Stenergaard declined to directly comment about Vance's mention of the Quran burning convictions. Let's see, former Minister of Sweden, so-and-so, called Vance's speech significantly worse than expected and accused Vance of blatant interference in the German election in favor of the far-right AfD. Prime Minister of Norway, Jonas, said that while Vance could address whatever points he wished to at the summit, he disagreed that the presumed erosion of freedom of speech in Europe was more important than the ongoing security issues of Ukraine and Russia and China. He didn't say that it wasn't happening. See, here's the thing. None of these people, not one of them, came out and said that it wasn't true. Okay? They defended these practices. They didn't deny it. They defended it. Le Monde, that's the French magazine referred to Vance's speech as a declaration of ideological war against Europe. Politico, now bear in mind, Politico is funded by U.S. aid, as has been revealed here just recently. They describe the speech as a wrecking ball to the summit and having brought culture war to Europe. Yeah, okay. Writers in The Guardian, another really horrible rag, fact-checked elements of the speech and reported on multiple inaccuracies and misrepresentations. Yeah, right. These guys are screwed. Okay, let's see. They go on advance, so it's safe. Oh, yes, okay, I guess this is one of the misrepresentation. In responses to Vance's remarks on the Scottish government's safe access zone, which is enacted in Scotland. Anyway, they try to say he's knowingly misrepresenting it. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Here's another one. Let's see. Conservative columnist Bret Stephens called the speech hypocritical and a disgrace, while Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, in a post on X said, J.D. Vance, you lied to the world in Munich. If this administration believed in free speech, as you claim, its leaders wouldn't be threatening members of Congress with criminal investigations for educating the public of their constitutional rights. No, I think it's because you're all criminals. Let's see. Gary Connolly interview said, imagine lecturing Europeans about being afraid of their own electorate when it is Trump and Elon Musk who are firing FBI agents because they dared to do their duty. Oh, yeah. Kash Patel, new FBI director. Confirmed. Let's see. Who are having loyalty tests to national security councils, who are firing tens of thousands of federal employees because they consider them part of the deep state. They can't be trusted. Senator Andy Kim said he felt embarrassed for America. My God, this is Wikipedia, people. I'm sorry. It's almost like I thought I was like reading something from CNN. That should tell you something right away. This is horrendous. As far as what's going on in Europe since then, I'll just say that the Europeans immediately held a meeting, an emergency meeting, immediately. Macron over there in France, the weirdo Macron, my God, the things they're saying about his so-called wife right now are just off the hook. Anyway, he called an emergency meeting and he summoned the friendly European leaders for a roundtable summit. And it's funny because they've compared this summit to the kids' table, which is exactly what it is. These are the fucking belligerent kids now that have to have timeouts, and all they can do now is sit at their little kids' table and argue amongst each other in the corner. It's exactly what they're doing. But you know, when they have these meetings, there's no leader of Hungary, there's no leader of Croatia, there's no leader of Serbia, there's no leader of whatever, Romania and what have you. You know who did go? One of the people that did go to this Munich security conference was the disgraced, deposed president, former, removed and ex-president of Georgia, Salome Michivili. And when she was coming back to, Tbilisi airport over there in Georgia, she got hit with eggs. Okay, I mean, people are sick of this stuff. They're sick of these people. It's amazing they don't string them up. It really is amazing because, these NGOs and these Euro puppets that are trying so hard to do this, it's just not working. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the broader European stuff, but I kind of want to talk about some other stuff here first, because this is an example of some of the things we're looking at. Now, if this is true, if this actually happens, this is extremely significant. But Robert F. Kennedy, of course, who has been, I believe, confirmed for health and human health and whatever it is, human whatever secretary, HHS secretary. He says, this came out yesterday. He says, his first 6 months as HHS secretary, he'll ban mRNA vaccines. He'll ban glyphosate and pesticides on our food. You guys forget about glyphosate? Roundup. He'll ban harmful food additives that are banned in other countries. That's a big deal. And here's another really big deal. He will ban fluoride from our water. And he will ban chemtrails. And last but not least, he'll make ivermectin available over the counter. Wonderful stuff, huh? Now, here's the thing about the chemtrails. It turns out that part of the Doge investigation and part of the the USA and all that, they found the slush funds that are funding the chemtrails. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it wasn't small. It was like $100 billion. And I believe the money was going to a fund called Blot or something like that. But it essentially was block out the sun. Bots, that's what it was, bots, block out the sun. So payments, $100 billion were going to block out the sun. Now, it's easy to understand when you consider that just an ounce of barium titanate on the retail market coming from China costs about $5,000. The United States government is buying this stuff by the shipload so that they can mix it up with alumina and all these other fun little things, nanobots, etc., and they can dump it on you from the sky, which they are still doing. So JFK claims that he's going to make this stop. Any one of these things is a big deal. Fluoride in the water, chemtrails, ivermectin, take your pick. Glyphosates, that's amazing, right? It's amazing. I don't see him saying anything about GMO. I don't see anything about the patenting of life forms. Hell, mRNA, what do you think that is? That is chimera. That is creating new DNA using CRISPR technology to manipulate and change and create new DNA by combining components of other DNA with your own. Evil stuff. And yet nobody will say bacteriophage. Now, funny enough, it turns out, unrelated of course, but at the same time, funny enough, that there's talk about the baby that Elon Musk has. Now, I don't know if they're talking about little X, but it could be little X. But apparently this kid, they were talking about the association with Elon and this woman, something St. Clair. The deal is that the St. Clair woman apparently has a tenuous connection to the family of Jesus, the ancestors of Jesus, whether you believe it or not. But they own the chapel apparently that was featured at the end of Da Vinci Code. So apparently these people believe that this family is part of that Mary Magdalene Jesus bloodline. Interestingly enough. But she basically wanted to come out and basically say that her and Elon didn't hook up to make this baby. The baby was concocted in vitro, and it used CRISPR technology and all sorts of manipulations and alien organisms to try to enhance the baby, the potential baby, to make a superior baby, kind of a transhumanism thing. But if you look at what I think is going on here, obviously he's trying to create more than just a super baby. He's trying to manipulate the baby that he thinks is somehow disposed genetically, royal bloodline to Jesus, which is interesting that he would, first of all, entertain this idea and make such decisions in his choices when it comes to reproduction. But obviously, I think it's clear what he's thinking, and I think if you take it further, you can see that what is he trying to create? He is trying to create an antichrist. Now, before I go on in that area, I have to bring up, Isabel wanted me to talk a little bit more about the elders. I had brought this up in a little impromptu interview I did the other day, talking about the guys that under the Getty who were the leaders, the actual absolute leaders. I don't remember the context of what I was talking about. I think it had to do with the fact that as a Jedi and as someone who's considered a terrorist by these guys, I've had my interaction and I've had to deal with them in the astral course, and I've also learned about them and through the description that's given in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, naturally. And these things all tie together. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, according to the protocols, the Zionists, the Satanists, the Masons, whatever you want to call these guys, Khazarian Mafia, are working hard to prepare the world for the recoming of the so-called Antichrist, which is an entity that they're trying to manifest. Now, if you may have heard me say, or my personal opinion, of course, is that they can't force this to happen. This entity that they are trying to cause to occur, this Antichrist, is strictly a manifestation that they are trying to realize. It's not reality that is written in stone. Whether or not there is actually a return of Christ, not necessarily a Jesus character, but a character that basically embodies the Christ consciousness and comes back in that role, if it's happened or not already. I don't believe that they really have any say whatsoever over what this entity that they would call the Antichrist is going to do. And they say as much in the protocols when they say that this person that is selected, and yes, is selected, not born into the role, but it is born into the role, but if it's born into the role, these people are the ones to ordain it as such. And so there's plenty of people out there that believe that they are the ones, their children are the ones, they will be the ones to come up with this new Messiah, this, as the Jews are looking for, the actual Messiah, which is actually an Antichrist. I believe in the exact opposite, of course. But this is the thing. Well, first of all, like I said, I don't believe that these guys have any choice. I think that what they try to do is they try to identify the one that is coming, and they try to manage and control and subvert and corrupt and do what they do with this human. And I believe that that's failing. And so I don't really believe that they have that much power. I don't really want to spend too much time on these guys, but I will say this. The entire system that is being perpetrated underneath us, and I'm not talking about the cloning or the space program or the adrenochrome or the Loosh collection or the slavery or the ritual sacrifices and all that. It's really based on the constant need to locate these special humans amongst the rest of the humans. These spiritually developed humans that are born and have gifts, special God-given gifts that we all have, but they are more evident, pronounced, and activated, if you will. And obviously, ultimately, they're looking for that one special human that they will deem their Antichrist candidate. their king of the blood of Zion. I know they've had lots of people that have been vying for that position, but I think that obviously the guys that I've been dealing with under the Getty and the people that, at least what they made clear to me just from my conversations with a trust fund manager, etc., I think I know what they're expecting. I think I know who they're expecting. And I just want to leave it at that. But I will just say that this character, this person that they're waiting for, this person that they want to label with these names, is truly going to be the one that does end them and helps to bring about a great transition, great change in the world. And ultimately, I think that obviously that's what our mission is, and that's what Occupy the Getty is, because what we're doing is nothing less than completely crushing the entire power structure of the enemy that's been going on unchallenged for millennia. And I'm simplifying that here. So, a lot of people are going to get excited with the changes that are coming from Trump. Obviously, this is exciting times. A lot of bad guys are getting thrown under the bus. A lot of good stuff is going to happen, not the least of which are going to be lots of economic improvement in the situation in the United States. Now, before I finish the show, I will go back just to some of the good things that are going to happen, such as the United States wasted $300 billion minimum on Ukraine since the beginning of the Maidan coup. And Trump seeks to recoup that money. He knows he's not going to get that back from Ukraine. This mineral resources is non-existent. And obviously they're not in the territory controlled by Ukraine anyway. So that was a game. That was a farce. There's not enough money to pay this back. But you know who has the money to pay it back? Russia has the money. To Russia, $300 billion is not a big deal. They already wrote off the $300 billion that the United States and the West confiscated. They wrote that off. They absorbed that loss. So they could certainly lose another $300 billion just to placate the West and end this war and give Donald Trump something that he wants. But here's what's really going to happen. And this is actually one of the nicer parts that I kind of like, is that the money that will be saved, the money that will be realized, that won't be going into killing, that won't be going into creating an endless supply of weapons that do nothing but get destroyed on the battlefield and turn into scrap metal, wasted money that goes into the coffers of the shareholders of Lockheed, etc. Instead of doing that, all that wasted energy, the money is actually going to go into actual good business, like in petroleum and financial sector and all of this. So what's going to happen is the United States and Russia are going to open up complete diplomatic relations with which they have nothing right now. They're going to reopen all their embassies, exchange personnel, and they're going to have a trusting relationship, something that has been completely destroyed under the last administration. But even if that's possible, but most importantly, the Russians are going to agree not just to work with us to help lower the price of oil, because obviously they're big players, and certainly having the meeting in Saudi Arabia is not because of the scenery. It's because Saudi Arabia is going to be a major player in the reduction of oil prices worldwide. So this is going to come. But this money that's going to exchange hands between Russia and the United States in order to settle these debts, it's going to be done so in very positive, energetic business that will create jobs, real jobs, and will show, well, assets, money, resources, equity going in both directions. So in other words, not only will we have at least $300 billion in business opportunities in Russia opened up to us and U.S. business, but that will grow into much larger amounts of money, and the same will be done here for Russians, which means both countries will benefit instead of losing. It's a win-win situation. Lower prices, no fear of nuclear war, rapproche mode, not even detente. Now here's the other thing that's exciting is that all of the ballistic missile treaties, anti-ballistic missile treaties, the various different treaties that were made regarding ICBMs, atomic weapons, etc., that were scrapped here recently, are all going to be revived. With the reopening of the embassies and all that, they're going to reinvestigate all of these treaties. Wonderful news, considering that right now we suddenly find ourselves in a, let's just say, less than favorable negotiating position, given that Russia now has missiles that we cannot defend against. So yeah, we're probably in a real good mood when it comes to trying to negotiate for systems regarding these missiles. We gambled and we kind of screwed up. Anyway, so yeah, economically, these are good times. It looks like good things are going to happen. But at the same time, as I said, we already know who the animals we're dealing with are. We already know who Trump is. We already know who Elon are. We know their policies. We know who they work for, who they really care about. We know that ultimately, even if they make everybody happy, that they're not going to disclose what's going on under the Getty. They are not going to ever destroy that. They're never going to destroy that. They're never going to stop that control system. They're never going to expose and eradicate the elders, the true threat, one beneath our feet, the vampires. So I would be really surprised, shocked maybe even, if someone like Kash Patel were to suddenly say Getty or express an interest in talking to me about these so-called bunkers, what have you. It's going to be interesting. But I know that a lot of the pundits out there, your Alex Jones types, your various different pro-Trump organizations, sooner or later they're going to have to embrace these things a little stronger. Just like Trump is going to have to embrace them, because there's only so many bad guys he can throw under the bus, I think, before people will go back to remembering that this festering infection that is the thing going on under in the bunkers is still going on. Obviously, ending chemtrails is going to be a big step in the right direction, but we shall see. So this is all very encouraging. But at the same time, we are entering into a potential technocracy, and the cooperation with Russia and the cessation of hostilities may even further that, may further us into a global situation, a different type of global situation, not one based on this Rothschild dynasty thing going on in Europe, but something involving Russia. You never know with the resources of these countries what could be done. And if anything, I would say, as I've reminded everybody, the quantum computing with all of its promises is the real, not necessarily threat, but the tool of potential abuse. And I'll tell you, just as a side note before we go on, is that Microsoft, of all companies, introduced a new chip. Don't remember what they call it. Things about the size of your palm. But supposedly is the first quantum computer chip, which uses proprietary technology, I assume, to basically create 1 million qubits. 1 million. Now, as I've been trying to share with everybody since I've been talking about this, the ability to multiply the number of qubits is the ability to multiply infinity by factors of infinity. It's extremely impressive when it comes to computing power, much like AI, which everybody is concerned of. And I'll just remind everybody that AI is limited to the number of ICs or GPUs or, hardware, chip assemblies, primarily GPUs they use for this, to produce each one of these nodes. I'm going to use the word node, is probably not correct, more adapt for quantum computing, but your AI is based on the multiplication of the ability to have these essentially small computers crunching numbers. So by having millions of these things, which is why they're so expensive, you can do millions of computations relatively quick, or replace millions of human workers crunching numbers, accountants, software engineers, that kind of thing. This is why AI is so scary to a lot of people. But if you combine it with quantum computing, now you're not limited by the cost of the GPUs, and you're certainly going to have infinite ability to crunch anything you could possibly imagine. So yeah, what's coming next? Transhumanism? Is it going to be done through CRISPR technology, mRNA, or will it be done by implants like Elon is talking about with his, I don't know what they call it, Neuralink chip? I'll tell you something about the so-called Neuralink chip. When I was working in the optical industry many years ago, I don't remember which company I was working for at the time. It might have been J.L. Woods in Santa Ana, but I was able to read some information. It was an old patent, and the patent was issued to PerkinElmer, another electro-optical company that I would work for, a massive company, which is now one of the major contractors at Area 51. But this patent was for a brain implant, and the brain implant looked like a tiny microscopic gold comb-looking thing with prongs that would essentially stick into the brain, essentially in a specific area. And this, of course, was connected to a chip, some sort of IC circuit that delivered whatever it was they were intending to deliver to the brain. So, obviously, this technology has been around for a little while. And certainly with Wi-Fi and with the ability to use RFID technology, etc., not the least of which we could suggest is the nanotechnology and the CRISPR technology, etc., I suspect that the brain implant technology could actually become, well, very possible, combined with the ever-present Wi-Fi signals and 5G, etc., that we're swimming in. So yeah, very concerned, very concerned. So I have a lot of mixed emotion about the things that are going on, and I do my best to try to focus on the mission and try to convince you guys to do the same thing, and happily I can report that most of you do. You're all doing you're doing good work out there, all of you, especially Jessica out there running around with her brochures and her stickers all over London and various places in the UK. I wish all of you would do that. Hell, I printed up those stickers and I barely get out, so I don't have an opportunity to stick them. And when I'm out there and I'm like, I should have brought stickers with me. All right? Of course, if you get caught, they're going to give you a ticket, but whatever. Such is life. All right, I'm not going to spend too much more time with that, but I'm just going to remind you guys, if you haven't already, first of all, thank you for being here. There's a pretty decent amount of you listening tonight. I appreciate that. I'm assuming you're all in the Occupy the Getty group on Telegram, and if you're not, please do join. A lot of you are finding your activism. You're doing things like you're making some gear, some swag, some hats and stuff, T-shirts. Go do it. Okay, obviously you're not supposed to be doing this for money and what have you. I mean, don't be reprinting the books to sell, this kind of thing. But if you can print a T-shirt or make a hat or make a poster or make a sticker, do anything to get somebody asking questions, to make the world see that we are something that's growing, not going away, becoming even more powerful, mainstream, ever present, ubiquitous, inevitable. That's what we want. Okay? Now, I have confidence. Of course, I know this is going to happen, and I know that all of the work that you guys have been doing and have continue to do and will have yet to do is making all the difference in the world. It really is. And I know that sooner or later, just like these stuff that's going off this week with Trump and Vance and the European Union and all the freak out going on in the deep state, I think the work we're doing has a lot to do with all of it. And I think that all of you ultimately can take credit for the most of this stuff because, you know, if it wasn't for our work, if it wasn't for us exposing the evilness, they wouldn't be throwing these guys under the bus. They have no choice. They're trying to keep up with us. They have no choice. They know that the change and the transition and the movement into this new society that we're going to create is something that can't be stopped. And they think that they need to manage it, be part of it, control it, and at the very least, take credit for it. That's what I suspect. So anyway, I hear Alex Jones had a call-in today. You guys flood that stuff. ESPN, whatever. Anybody's got taking phone calls? Remember, Baba Booey. You call them up, you say Occupy the Getty. All right? And while you're at it, say my name. Say it so much that they begin to hate me. Want to throw me in jail or something. Wouldn't that be great? It's the only way we're going to do this, people. All right? It's got to happen. So help me make it happen. All right. What else do I want to tell you before I go? Obviously, join the group. Occupy the Getty / Stephen D. Kelly. And if you want to talk to me and send me an email, don't be afraid. It's the law17gun at AOL.com, LAW17GUN at AOL.com. I know, it's an old email. Anyway, send me an email. I'll send you a copy of the book. I'll send you links to the Telegram group if you need it. I'll send you healing. Healing is a big deal. You know, I'll put a little public thing out here real quick before I go. I'm just going to tell you, Pope Paul, or whatever his name is over there, Francis, has double pneumonia. They're waiting for him to die any minute. If he would just contact me and say, hey, you have permission to do your thing, I could save him. But those of you that think I should just do it anyway, no, I can't. He's not a baby. He's not in a coma. He hasn't expressed any desire. It's just the way it is, okay? I hope you understand. Anyway, with that, I'm just going to say thank you for being here, all of you. Again, I love you very much. You are my family. You are... No, never mind. Sorry. Pardon me. Okay, guys, again, thank you for being here. We are the one and only Truth Cat Radio, and I am Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. And I hope I see you again next week, okay? Next Thursday, all right? The show will be playing in repeat, but I like it here when you're live because I feel your energy. I know you're out there, okay? All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for making it all worthwhile. I'll see y'all soon. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.